Welcome to the Biz Buzz Podcast, where we're talking business. This is a SCORE podcast and go-to resource for entrepreneurs and businesses at every stage. From dreamers and startups to seasoned pros and Fortune 500s. If you're launching, growing, or just thinking about your next big idea, you're in the right place. Each episode, we bring you expert insights, practical tools, and the inspiration you need to take your business to the next level. This is the Biz Buzz Podcast, brought to you by the Greater Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce and powered by SCORE of Southeast Wisconsin. Now, here's your host and SCORE mentor, Jim Rosetti.
Welcome once again to our podcast of Biz Buzz. And if you've been watching these, you know we've been interviewing our mentors in SCORE. So for those of you that are seeing these and may be interested in becoming a SCORE volunteer, I would send you to score.org is the website. And then you could click in there and it would tell you how to become a volunteer. And we can use all the volunteers we can get. And today I am talking with a young lady who started out as a client of SCORE. And now she is a full-fledged SCORE mentor. And I'd like to bring her in, Jodi Brunner. Jodi, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Now, you got an interesting background, so I'm just going to let you talk a little bit about your background, and so folks can kind of get a flavor for who are and what our volunteers had in their, in their past lives.
Sure. Well, I graduated college with an econ degree back in '93. Mm-hmm. And was quickly disabused of the notion that that was a marketable degree, especially in that moment in time. And so I ended up taking a position in a manufacturing firm for the vast sum of $21,750, and I was a glorified faxer and filer. People today probably don't even know what filing entails, but back then you spent a lot of time sticking papers in order in drawers. And that's what I did, and I was able to make my way through that company into various positions and various departments and learn a lot. Sure. But they were in a RIF moment late in the 90s, reduction in force, and my dad got caught up in that, and he had spent his whole career at this company, and he decided he was going to start a trucking company. And I thought, corporate America is nice. I've got about 9 years under my belt in this realm, but I want a little more control, a little more interest, and a little more opportunity to make money. And so I joined him in that venture, and I got a taste of what was entailed with that. The ups and the downs. The ups are higher, the downs are lower, and it was his business, though. So I wanted to kind of see what I could do myself. And at that time, a former colleague and then ultimately friend of mine was kind of getting riffed out of project management roles, and she wanted to enter into the world of entrepreneurship. And so we thought together that franchising would be right for us. And we thought it would be nice to have that stepping stone of the operational support and planning. And so we started to pursue an assessment of the different opportunities available. And this is, now the early 2000s, kind of the 2006, 2007. Mm-hmm. And she was a client of a business called Fitness Together, and so was a raving fan of this business and a one-on-one personal training business. And we ended up buying one of the few territories remaining in Wisconsin, and we quickly learned our first lesson, which was make sure there is a place to put your business before you buy the franchise. And so that was an interesting lesson. Franklin, which is the territory that we purchased, was a hockey stick in terms of the growth of the financial abilities of the people who resided there, but the residential space was not there. And so we kind of set that one to the side, and the same business offered another concept called Elements Massage. And we liked the people, and we got to know the people that were running these businesses, and so we first found our location. We ended up finding a really nice retail spot in Elm Grove, and then we bought the franchise and we proceeded to open that business. So that was 2007, 2008, which we faced some headwinds at that moment. Anybody who's got a little age on them will remember it was not a economically high time, and so that coupled with the fact that massage really wasn't embraced as a health and wellness part of a health and wellness regime, but more as a Mother's Day, Valentine's Day type thing.
Sure.
So we had some work to do there, and then we were also in a relatively nascent franchise, so the systems and processes and the brand awareness was minimal. So we put our heads down. We worked full time, the two of us together, and we were putting in long hours and learning a lot of new skills, as you do when you embark on a new franchise, things that you don't like to do, but you have to learn how to do. And of course, one of the lessons we learned then is when you have a partner, you're basically married to that person. It's not like having a colleague. It's having someone who you really have to grapple with some of the financial realities of a new business and challenges and different opinions, and we were kind of getting in our own way, not really agreeing how we should proceed with this business that, as in the case of many businesses, not going as quickly or as successfully as you would hope. So then, I can't remember if it was me. I hope it was me, because it was a great idea to call SCORE. So we ended up working with a lady named Joan Burke, who was, I can't say.
Oh, sure, I know Joan,
about her. She was just, we would meet with her on, I think at that time we were probably meeting with her weekly, and she basically said, you need to set your disagreements aside. We need to look at numbers. We need to work on numbers and understand what leverage we have in the business within these numbers and focus on that. And she really, ultimately the business was very successful and had a good run with it. But I do credit SCORE and this mentor with educating us, about how to function together as partners and how to focus on the right things.
Yeah, that's something that I run into a lot when I'm mentoring clients, when there's partnerships involved. And I've had them as many as 3 or 4 partners. And yeah, you're right. You hit it right in the head when you said it is like a marriage, because you're really joined at the hip. And each of you has their own respective area. And as long as you don't overlap each other, it can work. But the minute, and then if one wants to leave, then it becomes, well, who owns this and who owns that, and what do you take with you? And, it can be really sticky, unless you got a really well-written legal document that explains all of that. And,
I personally would never engage in another partnership, but certainly, we made all those mistakes. We didn't have a partnership agreement. We didn't have clarity on who had ultimate decision-making power in any domain of the business. We were 50-50 partnership. We didn't have any buyout clausing happening within any agreement. And so, the fortunate thing with regard to our partnership is at the end of the day, while we didn't agree very much, we both always appreciated each other's integrity.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
We had a pretty tough run of it. And ultimately, I'm a more patient person. My business partner, and this is the foundation of all our problems, she's very like, let's do it now. And sometimes she was definitely right within that mode of thinking, and sometimes I was. But ultimately, she decided this wasn't happening fast enough, and fortunately, we came to a nice agreement for me to purchase her brand of the business, and that worked out well. But yeah, you're certainly right. Like, a partnership agreement needs to be a very serious consideration in advance of any purchase or starting of any business.
Yeah, you can have it drawn up by, you can draw it up yourself, and then just maybe have each of you sign it and notarize it, and just keep it in your files if something ever goes south.
Keep it specific.
It's got to break up. But I'm glad.
Expectations are for participation, and if things aren't working, how can someone leave? Right of first refusal to purchase someone's apart. They can't just sell it to anybody. You know, a lot
That's
of
right.
these things need to be considered on the front end.
I've been down that road. I've had some ugly situations with partners and over the years, so I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I had a partner that I was down in South Florida, started a business, and he came in. He brought some things to the table that I didn't have, and it was good. But he also brought some things to the table that were bad. And
Yeah.
I had a corporate credit card, so I gave him a card, and and I had a card, and we were supposed to use it the right way for the business. That didn't happen, and it cost me dearly to get out of that. But and I'm glad you pointed it out because so many. Veritas believes that financial success goes beyond just numbers. It starts with identifying your true purpose in life and understanding how money supports that journey. With careful planning and strategic investing, Veritas will guide you to create new and enriching connections with your money that aligns you with your American dream. Let Veritas help you build a safe financial future where you can thrive. Visit veritasinvesting.com today. Because so many people are out there all ready to jump into a partnership, and it's fine. It works good. In the beginning, everybody loves everybody.
Right.
Yeah,
we're excited. We don't want to wait. Let's go. Let's run.
Right.
And then you start to trip.
When you get down the road a little bit, yeah, things can change, just like in a marriage.
Just like in a marriage.
Yeah. So if you can't work it out, and sometimes the only way out is to break up. How did you find the franchisor being helpful in that franchise as far as marketing and things like that go?
Well, again, I have to contextualize that because, this isn't McDonald's that we were with, where they're super organized.
Oh, a McDonald's.
It's
okay.
a huge corporate office with a lot of resources to draw upon.
Sure.
Yeah. And so we entered this franchise. It was about 2 years old when we entered it. And so that was another valuable lesson. And I talk to a lot of clients that I now have with SCORE when they're thinking about franchises, how to assess a franchise and understand what you're really buying because, you're paying a substantial franchise fee. You're paying royalties on a monthly basis. And generally, you want to be buying, market awareness. You want brand awareness. You want people to see your name and know what you do and
right.
what you're about. And we really didn't get that because we were the only other franchise that existed in Wisconsin was in Madison. So we weren't in the same market area. But fortunately, we had another franchisee who started in Whitefish Bay. We were in Elm Grove again. And that was, for those of that are not in the area, that's about a 7-mile stretch. So now we start to be in the same market area, sort of. So we had to develop and spend the marketing dollars on developing that brand awareness. The other thing you're supposed to get from a franchise is that home office support, how to do things. You shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. There should be an operational practice and process across all the disciplines of the business, from a finance to a recruiting to a retention to, how you actually execute the services, how you lay out the space, all of these things. And I think we kind of grew up with them. But one of the things that I realized, we spent a lot of the early years looking at them and blaming them for things that they didn't have. And I think when we stopped doing that and just said, this is our business and we have to figure these things out, that was a critical inflection point for us in the business as well, because a franchise is not going to solve all your problems. They are going to provide some resources to you, and you have to be thoughtful because the franchise fees are getting outrageous now. We had to figure all the marketing out. They didn't have any of that. We had our own website that we had to do at that time, which is now many years ago. So that was also educational. Ultimately, it was a good franchise. It continued to grow. They continued to invest in their processes and procedures in the intervening period between having that business buying out my partner, I ran it for 15 years. I did buy into another franchise. And so I had the opportunity to compare and contrast, what two different franchises really had to offer from a cost perspective and actual resources. But ultimately, I think one of the things that you should really look for in the event that you're considering a franchise is a robust franchise community, because the answers to a lot of your questions lie within the owners in the franchise. And a lot of the folks back at the office are well-meaning and they do really want to help you, but they're not running these businesses. The answers exist in a robust franchise community, and a lot of times it is. I found again and again, I had mentors within the franchise world of my two franchise systems, and they were instrumental in providing the answers and helping me avoid problems or not have to figure everything out by myself. So that's one thing I would really look for in a franchise. And in assessing, I always tell people who I speak to who are considering, again, talk to a bunch of franchisees who've been successful and who fell on their face. You want to know what the ingredients are to succeed in that particular franchise and what kind of support you can get from that franchise community.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think if you're going to buy a franchise, and it sounds like you bought one that was relatively new in franchising, maybe they were just beginning and expanding, and they're probably limited in how much they could help you, in the development. But because sometimes people lean on the franchise is going to give us a get-rich-quick situation because they got it all figured out and they're just going to guide us right through to not so. Even
it's
if you
easy to be led there because they have a sales team that is going to kind of paint a rosy picture to the extent they're allowed to by law. They can't tell you a lot about profits and things like this. They have to be very circumspect about how they communicate. So, due diligence in the world of the franchise is just as important as any other prospective business purchase.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think, a lot of people that are looking at a franchise should really, just like you said, talk to the other franchisees that are already and see what problems they encountered. You're not in their same logistical marketplace. You're not in the same geographical, so you're not competing in any way.
Right.
So they're going to be pretty open and honest with you, and I think that's the real key. And that's one of the things that to be approved to come into a state and sell franchises, and Wisconsin is one of the tougher states to get into with a franchise. You better be able to, that's part of the rules and regulations is that you'll give out that kind of information. Plus, you should be transparent with financials. How secure is this franchise? How stable is the company itself?
Sure.
Because I've had situations where the franchisor went under.
Quiznos, and others.
And the franchisee wanted to stay, and they did stay. They were able to then to change the name and put their own mark, but it didn't turn out that the entire franchise operation was what they expected it to be. But
it never is.
No.
Because you're led to believe it's more turnkey, and you can be a remote owner, and and I'm sure my experience is very similar to most, where in the early going of our franchise, we worked at it full time, gave it all our energies. We did that for about a year, and then we realized this thing is not growing fast enough for us to pay our bills, and so both my partner and I went and found full-time jobs and hired staff to do what we had been doing in the business, and so we experienced slow growth because we were diverting our focus across two different things. And so I bought her out. And then when I was able to return to the franchise, then I saw the growth because I was able to get full attention. And franchise is no different than any other business. If you're not paying attention to it, you'll bear the consequence of this.
Let me, now, you're still in your own business, right?
No,
okay.
So I bought my partner out after about a year and a half, and I ran that business for 15 years. And in the intervening period, I bought the neighboring location, and that was very nice because they were about 3 miles apart, and I was able to enjoy some economies of scale from a marketing perspective, from an employment perspective, and I had a lot of success. I got and this is another thing with franchise. A lot of people think about buying a new one, but there's an opportunity to buy existing ones because a lot of people are surprised by how hard it is and it doesn't perform the way they think it will. And then there's people who just like, boy, I'd love to get out of this thing, and those opportunities exist. And that was certainly the case with me. And then you can get a good deal.
Sure. Yeah.
And so in my case, you get a good deal, but you got something that probably isn't working, which is why they want to sell it. And that can have its own set of challenges, and it certainly did. But it turned into, I operated that business with my first one for that. Well, the last one I picked up was only about 2 years, but my husband said, I don't feel like my husband was kind of my handyman, and he did some things for me and helped me with a lot of things. And
He's very supportive
"Oh,
then, huh?
I'm in I think he turned like 60 at that point, and he's like, I'm ready to stop doing this. Because, I don't know, we're probably similar to a lot of people where Thanksgiving Day, you're in there working on stuff because it's the only day I'm closed. Or Christmas, and so that, that after 15 years, that can take its toll. And so we ended up selling, and we had a very nice outcome there. And so now, I am a lady of leisure, focusing on SCORE. I would love to maybe go back to work because we're thinking about building a house, and that is expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So, but presently, I've sold the business. Yes.
Are you now? When did you become a SCORE mentor?
So I sold my business it's almost my 3-year anniversary in a few days of having sold. And so that was a whole exciting thing too. I love to talk to people about buying and selling businesses. It's so fun.
That's so a whole nother.
Yes. And so shortly thereafter, you're thinking about, well, you have amassed a lot of information that's could be useful. And I reflect back on, like I said, my experience with Joan and how she was so generous with her knowledge and so helpful. It's almost a shame to have someone else have to trip over all those same obstacles when you are standing right there with this new amount of time that you have to offer. And so very shortly after I sold my business, I contacted SCORE and checked out whether I would be of use to the SCORE world. And I had a great onboarding, great experience with the SCORE team in southeastern Wisconsin. And so I've been mentoring for probably about 2.5 years now.
Yeah, well, and Jodi, that is, thank you so much for that, because you are a wealth of knowledge that you can help other people not fall into the same pitfalls. I did the same thing. I had made so many mistakes in business. I really can't tell you how many stupid mistakes. And I thought, I can definitely bring that to the table for people that are contemplating and keep them. And that doesn't mean they're going to stay out of those pitfalls. Sometimes no matter how much you tell them, they're still going to do it, and they got to learn the hard way. But no, that's exactly, I think you hit it right on the head. That's what the experience of the SCORE mentors brings to these clients is we've been there and we've done that. We've been in the trenches, maybe built a business from scratch into something pretty big and pretty large. And, hey, now I want to give back because I really feel I was blessed, I got through all those pitfalls, and I made it to the...
You made a successful outcome of your business. And the other thing, it's just, while you often feel like a slave in your business because you can't quit, you got to keep going.
Sure, yeah.
But ultimately, it's so freeing in so many ways, and that's what a lot of people are pursuing with the idea of business ownership, is the freedom. And not only are you probably earning a great living, but you have an opportunity to sell the business at the end,
Right.
as opposed to an employment situation where you're not garnering
Right.
any benefit from those long years of toil.
Yeah. And I think one thing that you are when you are the owner of the business and you're hiring people under you to hiring can be a whole different set of challenges. But the nice thing is you are the leader, and they're looking to you for those leadership qualities. I interviewed Jay Olson as a branding expert. I don't know if you know Jay. But it's just like he said. You are the one that sets the tone in the company, and if the employees see that you are saying one thing as a business owner and doing another,
Yeah.
they start to lose confidence in the company, and that can kill a brand pretty badly. It
Yeah.
can set a bad tone. So
Well,
you got to
my
really,
experience, I didn't really work in the business, as many entrepreneurs, and the classic E-Myth, working on the business is kind of where you want to be.
yeah,
But honestly, I did probably spend about 40% of my time recruiting. And because, like many others, if you have a tough talent pool, mine was an educated talent pool, so I couldn't just hire anyone off the street in a very limited quantity, which is
Sure.
a circumstance that many entrepreneurs find themselves in, especially, over the last few years.
Right,
You have to have something to sell. You are, in this case, the supply and demand is not in your favor. And so that is a wonderful, there's so many, this is one of many circumstances where the obstacle is absolutely an opportunity. And like what I mean is, like, when we opened in 2008, nobody was doing a lot of massage in this area. So that obstacle becomes an opportunity because staffing is available. And so later, when staffing is hard, the opportunity is to build an awesome place for people to work. And you got to build it brick on brick, not only from a compensation perspective, but a bonusing perspective, and thinking about what are the things that these people that I want to have come to work for me, what compels them in their choice of employer. And in my case, it was education. So we brought educators from far and wide, and I spent a lot of money on that. And that kept the type of employee that I was interested in coming to work for me, because they knew something good was coming up if they just stayed 6 more months.
right,
And showing your face and having regular coaching meetings and finding out what is going on, how are we doing for you, what can we do to take better care of you, and holding their colleagues accountable is a big one. They don't want to work with people who are boat anchors in the staff. But yeah, I think for me, just what you're saying, Jimmy, that was a huge part of what I spent my time on, is the strategy of developing the right environment for employees, and continuing looking, being the best, looking for opportunities to be kind of above and beyond what not that I was always, but that certainly was a goal of mine.
Yeah. So what kind of mentoring requests are you getting from some of the clients that are coming to you? Or I suppose it's all over the map, but
Yeah, it really is. I talked this morning with a client who I've been working with for a little over a year, and she's she's kind of got a little bit of traction with clients, and she's kind of a one-on-one coaching and business, and now she is looking, how do I take it to the next level? So it's a lot about how to start with your personal goals, back those into business goals, and then look for the opportunities within your business to effectuate, progress against those goals. Because I think a lot of times, a lot of the clients that I get have a lot of ideas, but they don't necessarily, really think about how those work toward their goals. You can do all these little things over here and all these little things over here, and all of a sudden they've spent all their time doing all these little things that aren't really driving the business outcomes that they're looking for. So I do find I spend a lot of time helping them evaluate how they're spending their time. And I really think it's important to say no to a lot of things, to understand, is your business about cost? Is your business about quality? Is your business about lead time? well, if your business is not about cost, let's stop talking about discounting. These sorts
Sure.
of like concepts seem to be applicable to a lot of nascent entrepreneurs. I know I certainly needed to hear these things when I was in their shoes. But I've talked to people about buying businesses and how to assess that, and and franchising and growing your business. And occasionally, I love talking about employment issues. Those are really, really fun, especially when I don't have to do them. I'm just offering it advice. They are some of the gnarliest issues in operating business. And so, kind of across the waterfront, a lot of different things.
Well, if things go the way they might look they're going to go in this world of AI that's coming in so strong, eventually we may have robotic issues. No more human issues, but that's a ways off yet, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna. That we are starting. I'm sure you are too, Jimmy. Starting to talk to people who are assessing businesses. Like, does that make sense? And
Right,
how is that going
right.
to intersect with that type of industry? And how can you make money there?
Yeah, it's a whole new revolution coming in the business world and employees and I don't know how well in the long run everything is going to work out, but it looks like that's what we're headed. A lot of menial jobs might disappear.
Right.
But still, somebody's got to make decisions, and right now, I don't think robots. They're artificial intelligence. So, hey, let me ask you, what do you think now that you've been a scorer on both sides of the fence with Score? You've been a client, and now you're a mentor. So, how do you feel Score as an operation is doing because the Score has been around since 1964, I think was the birth of Score, and so we've been on this. We've been here for a lot of years, so we got to be doing something right. But how do you feel as a company or as an entity, Score is faring out?
Well, I do think some things are kind of AI proof, and I think Score might be one of those because it is, a handing down of operational wisdom from one set of folks to another.
Right.
I think Score is awesome. I think, I know certainly when I was in provisional status and working alongside other mentors, there's a very much of a collegial teamwork atmosphere.
Sure.
In the event that I don't know something about this, but let's bring in Scott. Let's bring in some other
Yep.
mentor who can kind of augment the information that I have to offer. Or we're not a fit. Let's look together for someone who's better suited to what you're looking for. I had someone just recently who is not a non-native speaker, and we just weren't communicating well. So now we have to work together to find someone who can help him a little bit more than I can. We couldn't communicate well. So I think Score is awesome. I think if anything, really getting the word out. I do hear definitely more female mentors. I think.
Yes.
Think a lot of our clients are looking for that, and so that would be good. And I think talking to possible mentors, we could all do a little bit of recruiting for Score. Because it is very fulfilling. It's not just a one-way street. You get a lot out of being of service to someone.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's very
yeah.
flexible. I love that about Score. You can do it anytime from home. It's around your schedule. If you want to go on vacation, you can. It's not a problem. So Score has a lot to offer, particularly those folks who are maybe on the precipice of retirement and wondering what they're going to do and how they're going to fill their time. I think I might have shared with you. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's got years and years of sales experience, leadership experience, never heard of Score. And she was voicing that, I don't know how I would spend my time. She's got some mobility issues, and so, a lot of doors are closed to her relative to how to have a fulfilling retirement. And I said, Score, come and work for Score. And she was really excited about that. So I think, one of the biggest things Score, if anything is wrong with Score, it's just making sure people are aware of it from both a mentorship and a mentee perspective.
I've been on board with Score for over 20 years now. So I've been And I think one of the biggest thing when I talk to other companies and is people heard of it, but they don't really know what it does, for sure. They think they know, but I was, prior to being with SCORE, I was with the Small Business Development Center, and they're
Veritas believes that financial success goes beyond just numbers. It starts with identifying your true purpose in life and understanding how money supports that journey. With careful planning and strategic investing, Veritas will guide you to create new and enriching connections with your money that aligns you with your American dream. Let Veritas help you build a safe financial future where you can thrive. Visit veritasinvesting.com today.
I was, prior to being with SCORE, I was with the Small Business Development Center, and they're all tied into college campuses. So you kind of serve a couple of masters there, the college dean and maybe the SBA is because you're a part of the SBA and you're totally. We are a resource partner to the SBA, but we're not actually, under their thumbnail as much as SBDCs are. But I remember way back when I got into the SBDC, they were worried about disappearing. They were under siege, maybe losing their funding, which SCORE is facing right now. I think we're right up against that situation. Yeah. I don't think it's going to go away. I think that it's a service that has a place. And one of the things about SCORE that I find is people like yourself that have been there and done. We're not all textbook type people. Right. We can look at a textbook and it'll give us theoretically the way a business should run and operate, but it's not the real world.
I did a master's degree and it was comical almost. When you have that context and you're offered these lessons. I remember one gentleman in organizational theory. I was describing how something was working and he's like, that couldn't happen. Okay. Okay, but that is such a good point. Like, there's a lot of people say they need to read one more book, or they need to go to one more, get one more certification or college. And there's just such a thing as you just learn by going through it. Like, I learned so much more by operating my business than I ever did getting a master's degree. It's not even close.
No,
when you're in the trenches and having to make decisions and seeing firsthand the consequences, there's nothing to substitute for that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I saw in, not that it was totally academia with the SBDC, but you were kind of married to a college university. And, professors sometimes were the gurus that knew it all.
Sure.
And a lot of them didn't know it all. They thought they did, but just like you said, the real world is where you really learn it all, because street smarts. I wrote a book back in the 80s called, it was Bootstrap Marketing, Streetwise Strategies.
There we go.
It's out of print now because a lot of technology has changed the whole context of the book, but it really was talking about, that's what I was describing, is getting your feet wet, getting in the water, you can sit on the side of the pool and know exactly what the book says about swimming, but you don't know what it's like.
Unsolicited advice from people who've never swam before. Like, you got to weigh that appropriately. But that's so over the target, because a lot of us get into business not because we love marketing, but then you realize I got to figure out marketing, and it's a really quick place to spend a lot of money without a lot of outcomes, and a lot of people are there to take your money. So, that in particular, especially these lean startups, need to learn quick on the marketing front.
Yeah, one of the things, I think the biggest challenge I find with a lot of the people I mentor are finding clients, finding customers, finding people to, because you don't have a business unless there's somebody buying your service or your product. There's no cash flow coming in. And so getting them acquainted with the world of networking for me, because it helped me so tremendously in things that I did in my life, is networking. Some of the biggest deals that I ever had came to me as a referral.
Yeah.
Not because I went out and I went out in the street and knocked on a lot of doors and got a lot of rejection. But once I learned how to network and increase my sphere of influence, I call it, it came from
operations make the best marketing. The less time, the more time you refine your offering and make it better, and let your customers be your marketers. And that's
exactly
the flywheel spinning is. I don't want to spend $10,000 a month on paid search. I don't want to spend all this money because and I do, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, maybe, but people often fail because they just run out of money. They just, and they spend a little too much on the wrong things in the early going, and then the runway, gets real short, and they have to give up. It's unfortunate. And marketing is such a critical element of that equation that the more we can help our clients with kind of traversing that difficult area, the better. The more
sometimes having money, of course money is important if you got a marketing budget and but sometimes it can be wasted because of using it not very wisely. Sometimes getting by in the beginning, just what you got is a better, and then as you need it, I have to have it, and then you bring it in.
Right.
But I see people always, well, look at our government. Have they ever been successful running a business?
Never. Well, there's no consequences when it doesn't work out.
Right.
Go on down the road, and so the consequences are really integral to learning and improving and optimizing and succeeding.
Yeah, the government's got a blank check because they can print money and they can use taxpayer money.
Right. If you don't bear the consequences of your decision, you're doomed to continue to make the same mistakes. There's got to be skin in the game.
Well, sure. I gotta tell you, you are the first female that we've had on these podcasts, and I'm so glad that you were willing to do this today, because you mentioned that we do need more female volunteers, ethnic volunteers, people of color volunteers, people, just a variety we could use more of. And I hope these podcasts are going to help us to recruit people. They'll see the kind of people and the quality that we've got. I see so many good people coming into this chapter that's why I felt these podcasts let's start out with interviewing the mentors, because that's our product. You are our product.
Right.
If we've got anything to offer at SCORE, we don't charge for our services, so and people couldn't afford us, I think, if they had to pay for us. So it's great that there is a SCORE to be able to do something like this and volunteer.
Well, I do think women sometimes don't give themselves enough credit for their subject matter expertise. So I certainly want to encourage you, if you've had a long career in a particular discipline, or you in an industry, or even doesn't necessarily mean you've had to own a business or start or sell or buy or any of this. There's people looking for the expertise that people have amassed over many years, and I think it's such a fulfilling thing. I definitely encourage women to just, even if you don't think you have quite what you need, just reach out. You'll find the opposite is generally true.
I had some women clients that I still do but there was been some occasions where I could just tell they would feel a little more comfortable having another woman in the mix. So I had reached out for co-mentoring where I felt that was, and it did help. It really brought something to the table that I couldn't offer. I think it just, and women have a lot of perseverance, and sometimes they've got intuition about things in business that is exceptional.
Yep.
And some of the best employees I've ever had, and some of the best co-partners I've ever had have been females, and they brought something that really made it work. It just brought the right ingredients. So, but hey, listen, I know we've taken up a pretty good chunk of your time, and I want to thank you so much, Jodi. You've been such a treasure here.
Well,
I thank you.
Including me, and thanks for everything you're doing, Jimmy. And I really hope that these podcasts do redound to the benefit of SCORE and all SCORE's clients and future clients.
I think they will. And if you've got any SCORE clients that you think would make a good guest on these, by all means, let me know, because I think that's what we want to do next, is talk to the clients.
Great. That's great. That's a great idea.
But thank you so much, and hey, have a good the rest of your week. We got a short week here, so and thank you for being so generous with your time today. So.